Hey guys, so welcome to the channel. Welcome back. If you're a subscriber, if you're not, make sure you subscribe while you're here. I am here today to give a little IVF update. I know a lot of you really have followed us because of the IVF stuff or you know, anything like that, so I always get a lot of messages about IVF and things like that. So this time around, this transfer cycle, we're sharing things in real time, whereas with my son's transfer cycle, we actually did our whole retrieval and transfer cycle before we announced IVF, but this time we're updating in real time. I like both ways. I loved that we got to do our docu-series last time around that we have here on this channel. That was just really such a cool thing to be able to film and post and everything like that. So I'm really glad we did that. So check that out if you haven't seen that, because it covers our whole retrieval cycle and transfer cycle with our son. And so now our son is 16 months old and we are about to transfer our next baby. So anyway, I'm going to give you guys a little update on how things are going. So if you've been following for a little while, also if you can hear our air conditioner, I'm sorry about that, but it's warm here again today in Texas. You get random hot days pretty much all year, so it's warm and my son's napping, so I don't want it to obviously get too warm in here, so the air is going and it's very loud. But anyway, I recently, just about 3 weeks ago, I think it was 3 weeks ago tomorrow, had a hysteroscopy surgery done, and they removed uterine polyps. I had one large one and two smaller ones that were starting to form, and then I had some tissue that I think was likely like scar tissue, so they removed all of that, and the idea was they would remove all of that and then we would go ahead and transfer the next cycle, which would be this month. It would be in November. And so I you know, when they take everything out with the hysteroscopy, they test it. So they tested the polyps and they were benign, which is pretty typical, and obviously that's amazing. And so they were benign, and then they also tested just all the tissue they got out of whatever it was. They tested everything, and they realized that I had something called chronic endometritis. Now, that's not endometriosis. Even family members were like, oh my gosh, you have endometriosis? No, not endometriosis. I thankfully do not have that. I've never had anything like that, but endometritis is basically a uterine infection. I've talked about it before. I actually, maybe in the last vlog, 2 vlogs ago, I believe it was, I talked about that. It's basically a uterine infection that, you know, in my case anyway, I don't know if it's always like this, essentially just didn't go away until I took antibiotics. And now we're just hoping that it went away. They don't check again. I was on antibiotics for 10 days and you just hope that it's gone. I didn't have any noticeable symptoms of this, but it's likely from having my son. People that have C-sections are like way more likely to get endometritis than women who haven't had C-sections. So, you know, it's likely because of that. So anyway, I had that infection and I thought that might push transfer forward, but he said that just take these antibiotics and then call with your next cycle and we'll get started. And that's an important line, call on your next cycle, we'll get started. And so anyway, also to kind of preface this, I record everything that my doctor says for vlogs and everything, but also for personal reasons, in case I forget something, in case I misunderstand something, in case they try to say they said something they didn't say. I just think it's important that you record things. I tell everybody in my family to do that. Hey, when you go to that appointment, record what they say. It's helped me a lot. I think it's important. So I record literally every word that comes out of their mouths. That's just what I do. They know that I do. I even asked when we first started our IVF cycle if I could record, and they said yes. So anyway, I record everything that's said, and so anyway, I was on birth control, so I kind of had an idea when my cycle would start, because when you're on your if you've ever been on birth control pills, when you're on the last line of birth control, that is just basically sugar pills, and your cycle will start because the hormones drop, all that stuff. So usually in those first couple days of those sugar pills, you'll get a cycle, unless you just have a hard time, you know, with that kind of thing. But my cycles are always really regular. I've never had a problem with anything like that. So I get to that last line, I know it's about to start, I'm knowing we're about to start this transfer cycle, and honestly, I've had a feeling the whole time that we wouldn't transfer in November. I just didn't think we would. I believe it was probably the Holy Spirit letting me know that that was not going to happen, but I just didn't think we would transfer in November. I've been saying I think it's going to be January. I don't think it'll be November. At my appointment, my post-op appointment, he did say that if we don't transfer in November, it would have to be January, because they close the lab in December for Christmas and everything. So anyway, you know, I'm waiting for my cycle to start, and it starts Friday night after the clinic was closed. And you know, I had spotted a little bit before that, but that's not what they consider a cycle, and sometimes that can happen for a couple days before an actual cycle. So my actual cycle was Friday night after everything was closed. Well, always, whenever that happens, they always tell me, before I get to this part, I want to say, you know, if you watch the vlogs, I love our clinic, I love our doctor. I particularly love our doctor. Our doctor's amazing. He is truly, I believe, a godsend to our lives. He took something that was really a difficult infertility diagnosis. It was not simple at all, and I think it could have gone very differently had we been with a different doctor. I've seen it happen with other people. I know that he helped us. I know that God sent us to him. So before I say this next part, I don't want you to think it's just being hateful or whatever, because literally I truly am thankful for IVF, and I'm thankful for this doctor. But the communication on the nurse's end and everything like that was not excellent this time around, and I was upset, and it was not fun. But, and I am upset, I'll be honest, it's upsetting. But anyway, so I call on, they tell me all the time, like all of the time, if your cycle starts on a weekend, call on Monday morning, first thing. Now, they've told me that numerous times. That's just what we've done. At our clinic, it's not like what I see with a lot of people, where they give you a personal number of a nurse to call. Even during our retrieval process, we didn't have like a specific nurse that we could call her at any given time. Him or her, all of ours at our clinic are women, but, you know, he didn't have, there was no like, hey, call this person anytime you want to if you have a problem. We've never had that. It's just always been, call on Monday, you know, and that's just kind of how it's been, other than during retrieval, because retrieval is a very different situation. It's extremely time sensitive, all those things. So during that time, we had to stay in Dallas. That's where we do IVF. It's 2.5 to 3 hours away from us, depending on traffic. The location in Dallas anyway that, you know, we go to. And so anyway, it's, we stayed there during retrieval, but for everything else, they just say, you know, because retrieval has like sudden appointments and all that, but for everything else, they just say, hey, you know, call on Monday. So I even thought about calling, and trying to see if, you know, I could figure something out or whatever, but I knew that always before, there was nobody there on the weekend. I didn't have a particular number to call, and they always say call on Monday. So anyway, I called on Monday morning at 8 a.m. Very first thing, they open at 8. I called right at 8 a.m. because I wanted to get on this, and I knew that obviously starting Friday night, kind of really early Saturday, you know, depending on what you're considering a cycle, because that's, everybody's got a different opinion. I called them, and she was like, oh, you should have been here, if you started Friday night, you should have been here Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And I said, well, okay, but he just told me to call with my next cycle, and I couldn't call because I don't have a number, you know, like a emergency number or a nurse's number or whatever. I don't have anything like that, so I had no way of contacting you. Like, I don't know what I was supposed to do. I mean, I knew I needed to be seen, but I had no way of telling them, you know what I mean? And so anyway, she was like, well, I don't think we can do it because you should have been here on Saturday. And she was rude with me, I'll be honest. She was not, she kind of acted, she wanted to put the blame on me immediately. And she's not one of the nurses. She is the front desk lady that, you know, can be a little bit more on the rude end than how the nurses are there. So she kind of got a little bit like, well, I don't know what we're going to do because, you know, you should have been here. And I said, well, I've done a whole IVF cycle back in 2020, and I mean retrieval and transfer, and I never was told to just show up on Monday. You know, like I was never told to just show up, other than during retrieval. They would say like every 2 days come in at 8 a.m. Like it was something like that. And so I didn't call for those. I did just show up, but I was told what to do, you know. During transfer, I never just showed up. I always made an appointment for transfer. Now, maybe my cycle didn't start on a weekend. I would have to look back at those videos and things. But I know for sure I didn't just show up during the transfer process at any point. And the doctor did tell me call, you know, and make your appointment and all that. He never said if it's on a weekend, just show up. And nobody had ever told me that for the transfer. So I told her, I don't know why nobody ever told me this. You know, like, I mean, I literally have even done a whole cycle before and was never told that. And she was like, well, during retrieval, you were told, you know, and you signed a paper that, you know, said that you were just going to show up. And I said, okay, that was during retrieval, but I'm not coming for an egg retrieval. I'm coming for a transfer, and those are different things. So they're even treated very differently. The appointments are different. I mean, they're different things. And so I was like, I don't know what I was supposed to do. What should I do? And she's like, well, if you can come now, like right now, we might be able to do it in time. But if you've already started producing follicles, we won't be able to. And I tell them all the time how far away I live. I said, I live 2.5 to 3 hours away. I have a toddler. I was about to walk into my staff meeting. There was just so many things going on, and literally it was not physically possible for me to be there in 15 minutes or however long they wanted when I live 3 hours away, right? 2.5 to 3. And she's like, well, how long will it take you to get here? After I just told her it was going to be 2.5 to 3 hours. And I said, well, even if I got in the car right now, which I cannot do, it's going to take 2.5 to 3 hours. And at that point, I mean, it was just, there was no point of that. And I kind of figured I would probably get there and they would say it was too late and just it would be a pointless visit. And I didn't want to rush it. I don't want to just go in and just try to hopefully transfer and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I want it to be the right time. And so, anyway, I definitely expressed frustration as nicely as I could that I wasn't communicated with. I was not told that I needed to just show up at 8 a.m. I knew that for retrieval, but that's because I was instructed of that. This time, he just said call. And I'm not blaming him. He's actually been a very good communicator. I'm very impressed with him. I've never had a bad experience with him, but I think it was on them. I think the nurses and everybody were supposed to tell me this, and I was never told. And so anyway, that was very frustrating, and so I asked, you know, I said, I know doctor, you know, the doctor had told me that I won't be able to transfer in December, because she said, well, you'll just have to wait for your next cycle. And again, she wasn't even being informed, obviously, that, you know, I couldn't do my next cycle because that would be in December. So I was the one that had to bring up, well, the doctor told me that I can't transfer in December, and that's when my next cycle would be, because this is November, my cycles are regular. I can't transfer in December because of Christmas and the lab closing, so it would have to be, from my understanding, January. And then she all of a sudden realizes, oh yeah, it'll have to be January. Like, she just didn't know what was going on, you know? And it's like, I know, you know, if it's just a regular doctor's appointment, you know, like you're going in to like, for a checkup, you know what I mean, or something, and something gets confused and you have to wait a month. Like, I know that that's probably not that big of a deal. And if you've never done IVF, you don't really realize the big deal of it. But these people are dealing with our future, with our babies, with our life plans. I mean, literally, this, I mean, like, it's so important. And I think that's where a lot of the frustration came from, is like, why are you acting like this is just me coming in to hang out? You know what I mean? And now I'm going to have to wait to do that. Like, it is so important. Future plans, literally, cannot be made without knowing when this IVF cycle is going to happen. And not only that, I think this is the biggest thing. I'm getting texts. I don't know who they're from. Make sure it's not anything I need. Anyway, so the biggest thing for me and for Manny is a lot of people don't understand. I'm going to be very straight up right now, and this is not geared at anyone, but a lot of people don't understand what it's like to not be able to just decide with your spouse, hey, let's have another baby, and not just be able to just do that. You know, like, not just be able to just have another baby like that. And for us to just have another baby, and again, this is not complaining, because my goodness, am I thankful for IVF. Wow. It's amazing. God is so good, and so smart, and so kind, and all of that. But obviously, it isn't as easy as just being able to say, I'd like to have another baby, so let's have one. And then the next month, whoop, there it is, got one. You know, that's not what it's like. It is relying on other people's schedules. It is relying on, you know, all sorts of things. Medication didn't show up in time. Well, gotta wait a month. You know what I mean? And then there's also the other aspect of it, where I just had 3 polyps removed in scar tissue, and the scar tissue will be fine, but it'll stay gone. But the polyps, I even had to sign a paper. Obviously, they could come back. You know, they can come back at any time. We don't know why you get them. You know, it's like most women get them, and you don't really know why. You know, it's not something that you can prevent. They can't prevent me from getting polyps before January. So if we go back in January and I have polyps, which I am declaring I will not, but if I did, wait till February. And actually, it wouldn't even be February. We'd have to get the polyps removed first, so it would be March, probably. Yeah, we'd remove the polyp in February, we'd transfer in March. So now we're looking into possibly going in the middle of next year. So this is how IVF works. And this is why you start as early as you can, and this is why it's so important. And it's not like you just go in and they just hand you a baby and there's that. There's so much that goes into it. And for a clinic, that's the one thing that they do. This is all they do. For them to not tell me what I needed to know and when I needed to be there and all of those things so that I could make appropriate plans for that, and then to act like it was my fault that they didn't tell me, and it's my fault that I couldn't just somehow like fly myself in an airplane to be there in 2 minutes when I live 2.5 hours away. Like, it just really aggravated me. So Monday morning, I was very upset. Obviously, we were looking forward to transferring in November. Obviously, like, it's so exciting. It's a chance, y'all. It's a chance that we, I mean, I believe God can do anything God wants to do. So I'm not speaking on that front, but that we medically don't have without IVF. Medically speaking, what the doctors say is we essentially have like maybe like a 1% chance of getting pregnant naturally. And so this gives us a chance, and it's an exciting chance, and I was looking so forward to it. You think of the due date, you think of all those things, and you look ahead, and like I said, it's our future. This isn't just some little appointment that, we can do it any time. This is our future. This is our family. These are our children. This is important. And again, it happens. People make mistakes. People don't communicate things, whatever it might be. I know they didn't communicate it because, like I said, I record everything. I know that was never explained to me. That was never said. I did know that I needed to go soon. But I think that if I'd gone that Monday, I would have already been creating follicles, which you can't be doing and have a transfer. I wasn't real clear on some of that, but anyway, my body always does what it's supposed to do when it comes to that kind of stuff. I'm always right on schedule. So I think it would have been a waste to go. But it is frustrating. It's hard. But at the end of the day, you know, I know that God knows exactly when this baby needs to be transferred, exactly when this baby's birthday is. All of that is planned out. And I think that it was supposed to be in January. I think maybe I needed a little bit more time to heal from surgery. Maybe I needed, you know, whatever it might be. But I believe that it was supposed to be in January. And that's why this is happening the way that it's happening. It's frustrating. It's a delay. It's another delay. I already had one because I had to have my surgery. So this is another delay that is not fun. And I cried and I was very upset Monday morning. It was very hard to just go about my day after being told essentially you can't have your baby this month. You got to wait till January. You know, it's just really frustrating. You know, this embryo that's in Dallas, that is our baby. And, you know, people say all the time, well, maybe you'll get pregnant naturally. You know, maybe, I'm sure that's going through people's minds watching this. You know, maybe they'll just get pregnant naturally before January. And the thing is, even if that were to happen, even if we did get pregnant naturally, it would be amazing. We'd be so happy about that. Don't get me wrong. We'd be thrilled. But we would absolutely still transfer this embryo because this is our baby. And, you know, we've already created this one and we want him or her so badly. And so we would still do it. We would have, if we got pregnant naturally, we would have that baby and then we would also transfer the other embryo. That's just what we would do. 100%. So no matter what, we want this baby. And so, you know, we're excited about the future. We believe 2023 going to kick off with the pregnancy. And it's, you know, God knows, and he's got a plan, and his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. His ways, you know, are just better than ours and higher than ours. And he's better than me. I'm not God for a reason. And so he knows what we need. And I'm just declaring that. I always say, you know, as a worship pastor on the platform, I always say, sometimes you have to declare truth even like before you truly understand it, you know. And in this moment, it's kind of like, I don't understand why it worked out that way. I don't understand why we can't just transfer, you know, our embryo right now. But I declare truth that I know that God works all things together for good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And I know that this is one of those things because all things are covered, right? Because he works all things together for those who love him. And we do, and are called according to his purpose. And I know that we are. And so, you know, we just put it in his hands. We thank God for a January pregnancy. You know, we know statistics say not every embryo transfer works. That's very true. But we believe and we say and we speak over our lives that it will work. And that this is our baby. And so anyway, thank you for joining me for this update. I know that some of you are just don't even know what happens with IVF. And then some of you are so deep immersed in it that you feel this video to your core. And wherever you fall on that scale, I thank you for watching this video. Remember, you are incredible. Jesus loves you. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.